I come from a place which is very small, where pretty much the whole village is related to one another. In my village, there are only 4 households. My uncle's household was the only house which supported me, and the rest 3 households are actually my family members. We all originated from the same house, but they decided to go with the other person because the other candidate is my relative too. As things progressed, we got well into the familiarization round finished, we were getting into campaigns. Then things started getting a little personal in the sense, well, it's family members who have to decide whether they want to be on the left side of the wall or the right side. And it's very difficult for them, we understand. Then, of course, in between, I think the major problem started erupting when there were already family members who already had some kind of issue already happening. And then when the whole political thing came on, it took things to such an extent that they are still not speaking. But still then, what I find now is when I go up, the trickle down of what happened in 2008 is still there. It is definitely dissipating, but it hasn't become non-existent. And I think the 2013 elections will actually be time for us all to see whether the same kind of animosity that was there in 2008 between political parties and between people who supported political parties will exist or not.
How do we deal with disagreement? Democratic societies thrive on dissent, discussion, and debate. Too often, however, societies all over the world provide poor role models for children and adults trying to learn the skills to be effective, active, and responsible participants in that democratic society.
There are no real issues that these politicians have. They're a bunch of rogues who are jumping from a non-issue to a non-issue. So what they've managed to do today is
The truth is that the debate you see on TV is not real debate. It is nothing more than a shouting match between 2 personalities. While this may be entertaining, it lacks the listening, reasoning, and analysis that real debate requires. If we want to live in a society animated by vibrant, civil conversations, it is not enough to teach students to have informed opinions. We must also teach them how to disagree with others.
We have been in a society where everything that people on top says is right. We have always believed that what our superiors say is right. And coming from a hierarchical society to a democratic setup, I think it's important that people debate and put their points across. Of course, it's important that not to take the points of debate personally, because in a society like ours, we have always been so polite, and people just do not want to debate. They always wish away from having debates, especially in public places. So for that matter, I think if people are bold enough to debate, only concern is that one should not be taking things personally.
In fall 2012, the Bhutan Center for Media and Democracy, in collaboration with the Royal Thimphu College, began training students to engage in a different style of debate, one that is civil but also fun. The program introduced students to the fundamentals of debate: listening, understanding arguments, and refutation. Some people think that engaging in argument means being angry at someone. That's one use of the word argument. In debate, we use a far different meaning of that term. In some ways, though, making an argument in debate is the opposite of being mad at someone. It means making claims based on logical reasoning and proof. An argument consists of 3 main elements.
Through assertion, we mainly discuss what the main topic of the debate. Like for example, the smoking should be banned. So that can be assertions. So, and reasoning, we should give why smoking should be banned. Like smoking should be banned because it is very it's bad to our health. It causes lots of death and diseases. And the evidence, we can say because of the smoking, more number of people we see they are getting diseases, and it creates social problems among the families, parents, friends.
Debate isn't just about making arguments for your side. To win the debate, it is essential that both sides refute the points made by the other side. In this way, debate is a little like playing ping pong.
Refutation, normally first we listen to what others say, so after that we use certain points such as if we use words like they say, and they, for example, they said that tobacco should not be banned in Bhutan, and we have to give our points, and we have to say, but I say that. We have to use words like but I say that, and we have to use because, but I say that it should be banned in Bhutan because we have to use words like that and say what, argue on what the others say.
We suggest our points with the facts and evidence. Which are empirical and statistically proved.
And using the therefore statement, we conclude this.
Okay. Great.
A very good afternoon to you all, respected dean, judges, professors, all faculty, all BCMD staff, all juniors, and all my dear friends.
Our group believes that zero tolerance to indiscipline in schools is a desirable policy. One of the major catalysts of the enactment of this policy happened in November 2011 when 4 students of Royal Thimphu Higher Secondary School involved in stealing board exam papers and permanently disabling a caretaker in the process. This made others realize that the increasingly unsafe environment at schools need an intervention in order to maintain an environment suitable for learning. So because of such cases, zero tolerance policy was enacted in May 2012. It is important to remind my fellow mates that zero tolerance policy is directed at only the most severe cases of disruption, examples, violence, stabbing, murder, and peddling of drugs that undermines safe learning environment. These cases are even seen on the rise even here at Royal Thimphu College. A few weeks ago, there was a situation here on campus where a room was broken into by another student while the roommates were sleeping, and a computer, 2 wallets, and 2 phones were stolen. As a result, the students that live in the room were overcome with a sense of extreme discomfort as well as fear. This one crime has created an atmosphere incompatible with one directed towards learning and growing. The primary purpose of this policy is not to punish students, but to give them the right outlook on life and make them responsible for their behavior. Education Secretary Amsangizam said, I quote, "There seems to be a perception that we are going to merrily expelling children. I would like to make very clear that the Education Ministry's mandate is to nurture and help children realize their full potential, and that we are not here to punish them." I unquote. Zero tolerance policy is a consistent law that is directed at all the students equally. Students learn responsibility because they know what is expected of them. Zero tolerance provides guidelines for the students to understand how to behave appropriately. Not only does it address problems from a reactionary perspective, but it takes preventive measures to encourage students to think before they act. The policy teaches the students that their actions have consequences. Royal Education Council member and Honorary Consul of Bhutan to the UK, Michael Rutland, in an email interview said, "It is a basic principle of Buddhism that all thoughts and actions have inevitable consequences, the principle of cause and effect." The education system and individual schools need to articulate this principle very clearly so that students from the youngest age understand and accept the intolerable behavior. Bhutan is a budding democracy with respect to the enactment of zero tolerance law. It is important to keep in mind that the zero tolerance policy is not an arbitrary decision. It is collective decision that has been taken after much review, analysis, and consultations. Lempo said that the Education Ministry has extensive consultations with all 20 Dzongkhaks that involved Dzongdaks, Trizims, district education officers, principals, and senior teachers. What was decided was that for extreme cases, the best response for the community as a whole is that, as a last resort, students should be permanently expelled from Bhutanese schools. This policy promotes both a safer environment for the school and more responsible students as a whole.
I'm sorry, we just have to. Do you have one more sentence? Your concluding remark? If you could just. Very quickly. Sorry, we're just trying
Here at RTC, Dasho has repeatedly emphasized that he wants to give his students as much freedom as possible. When the college first began, the amount of policies the school implemented was significantly less. However, students were not used to the freedom and abused the power they were given. Thus, new policies were formed to help guide students to learn responsibility in a safer way. Zero tolerance is merely one example of a strict policy that exists in schools in Bhutan. Last but not the least, by enacting the zero tolerance policy, we understand that we should remove the cancerous tumor before it spreads to all the students and paralyzes the functions of whole institution and above all tarnish the image of Bhutan's peak learning. Thank you all.
Zero tolerance. The term zero tolerance can have a varieties of meanings. It usually refers to a set of policies that strictly and quickly punish student or anyone. Zero tolerance tries to make schools safer but fails. Let me give you an evidence. The American Psychological Association in 2006 reported finding no evidence that zero tolerance reduces school violence or improves student behavior. Rather, the National Center of Education Statistics reported that schools with no crime reported were less likely to have a zero tolerance policy for violence that school had reported on one more serious crimes. The zero tolerance policies are unjust because they fail to allow administrators that ability to handle incidents on a case-by-case basis. News stations and many others have called zero tolerance equal zero to intelligence. Let me give you an example. Zero tolerance on tobacco in Bhutan, which was implemented in 2005. It has been almost for 7 years, which it has been implemented. Still, we find smokers everywhere. I think the policy has failed to do its duty. The zero tolerance policy is unjust and unfair. It does not allow due progress, which is a right given to us in our Bill of Rights. For example, in network school in America, children in elementary schools who were expelled for acts that aren't even worth punishment, such as the third grader held a chicken finger like a gun pointed at his teacher and said freeze. He was suspended on a zero tolerance policy for weapons. The New York Times says that. The third one, innocent can be the victim. Under zero tolerance school policies, there is a sharp risk of innocent students being punished for behavior that they did not display or behave that in a misinterpreted or misconduct. For example, a boy bullies another boy and starts a fight. Who do you think will be like getting the punishment? Here, the both of them had been getting the punishment, which is ridiculous, I think. The third one is education's zero tolerance policy is not a solution. One of the articles of Bhutan Observer which is a local newspaper, written by Pema Tenzin, talks about education zero tolerance policy criminalize students. The article talks about how the policy doesn't allow expelled students to get admitted to any other schools in country. It says that the policy will criminalize students instead of reforming them. What do you think? I think the article is right. Such policy is definitely not a solution to discipline problem faced by many schools in the country. Especially urban schools, children are born to make mistakes and learn from them. That's a part of learning experience for the young. Schools are places where we send our children to be educated, to gain knowledge so that they become productive and responsible citizens. In this context, education's zero tolerance policy is very harsh and inhumane. The fourth one, zero tolerance. Another report conducted by the Indian Education Policy Center at Indiana University School of Education says that zero tolerance is a political response, not an educationally sound solution. It sounds impressive to say that we are taking a tough stand against misbehavior, but the data says it simply doesn't been effective in improving students' behavior. So it's clear that we should have zero tolerance for zero tolerance.
Respected judges, BCMD members, and all of my artistic friends. The zero tolerance policy is a debatable and a debated topic all over the world. It doesn't mean that the zero tolerance policy, when we are referring to it, it's only referred to Bhutan. Like the topic itself says that zero tolerance policy to indiscipline in schools is a desirable policy. It doesn't mention in Bhutan. So therefore we are mentioning the American examples, and because that the zero tolerance policy has been established in America since 1997, and in Bhutan it is a very young policy, and therefore we are using the examples and referring to America. The implementation will never be understood the same by different administrators if the zero tolerance policy to indiscipline does not include all the indiscipline. It cannot truly be called zero tolerance and is impossible to carry out if it contradicts itself. When referring to the zero tolerance policy against tobacco or smoking, it is they are my body opponents. They are using an invalid point because even in our college we are using the zero tolerance policy for smoking or tobacco use in campus, and therefore we have been doing a lot of surveys, and then all the faculties, students are involved in this survey, and then they have came up with the conclusion that we should be reducing or stopping the use of smoking cigarettes and tobacco. The zero tolerance policy doesn't necessarily reduce the crime rates or violence in schools or in the country. Rather, it will flame the crime rates, and then it will ignite the violence in the country, because when the students they misbehave in the schools, then and if they are expelled and then suspended, then there will be an increased number of school dropouts, leading to an increased number of unemployment rate in Bhutan, and then ultimately there will be increased number of crime rates. And therefore, we should say no to zero tolerance policy to the indiscipline in school. But when we say we don't need we say no to zero tolerance policy, it doesn't mean that we want to say that the students who commit crimes and who commit mistakes, they shouldn't be punished. They should be, but there are alternative ways in coming up with or in solving the problems. We shouldn't necessarily just come over the problem, but we should come up with alternative ways to solve the problem rather than the zero tolerance policy, such as counseling, the help of the family members, then introducing reform schools as in America, and then also we should have the teachers, their friends, create a very like conducive learning environment whereby the indiscipline can be like minimized and then zero tolerance can be removed. And then furthermore, I would also like to say that with the like emergence of zero tolerance policy in Bhutan, many schools were kicked out of schools. For example, like in Sharapsi, recently there was a case whereby 7 students who went to a birthday party of a friend, and then 2 of them like destroyed the glasses of vehicle, and then like they were expelled out of schools. So do you think that it is just or fair to just kick them out of school without giving them a second chance? Because everyone deserves a second chance. When we like talk about the zero tolerance policy in schools, we are like making schools like a prison, because in schools we are punishing our own students, and then like when they are doing or misbehaving and coming up with indiscipline matters, then they are just like they are drained or piped into prison. So we should say that zero tolerance policy is a so like I want to conclude that we should say zero tolerance today, zero tolerance policy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like my opponents, they said like zero tolerance. The topic itself, the zero tolerance policy to indiscipline in school, is a desirable policy. It does not specify that it is in Bhutan. Well, since we are holding this debate in Bhutan, and it has been the current issue in our country, yes, we are talking about zero tolerance policy in Bhutan. And one of my opponents, she talked about having other disciplinary policy instead of zero tolerance policy, which is what we used to have. But with all due respect, zero tolerance policy is only implemented when all other disciplinary policy fails. If I quote, Education Minister excuse me. Whatever, I will just say like the education minister said that when like the zero tolerance policy is only implemented when other disciplinary policy has failed, and then he believes in the students that it will be a rare case, an extraordinary case. And also like one of our opponent also the last speaker from the other side also mentioned that when zero tolerance policy is enacted, there will be the increased rate in crimes and violences. Like we cannot say that yet, because zero tolerance policy in Bhutan is very new. It has only been 5 months old, if I mention that. And then like, and before we see the progress of the zero tolerance policy, we cannot say that the crime rate will increase. Crime rate is on the peak already in Bhutan, and we cannot say that the crime rate will again increase when zero tolerance policy is enacted. And also the first con speech that Kinzang talked about, he said that he said about rights, that Bill of Rights provide us. Well, just to mention, it's not Bill of Rights, it's fundamental rights of the Constitution of our kingdom, that says that the state has that ability to take away all the rights if your rights come into conflict with the other people's right and their freedom. So by allowing students to do criminal or violent stuff like stabbing or murder, you're actually harming other people's freedom to their life, right to their life. So yes, zero tolerance policy should be implemented if our rights are in danger too. And about other solution, like Cinema mentioned about, like we should have counseling and other solutions. Yes, like the policy makers are not really that stupid that they just implement the policy and not think about the consequences. They did a thorough research and then they came up with a solution. Like they have rehabilitation center, and also if I quote Chief Human Officer Sonam Wangil in the Council said that Ministry has already recruited 12 full-time counselors to help the schools with indiscipline problems. It will recruit 75 more. So the policy makers are actually trying their best to give all the available services to the people who have these problems. We are for zero. The bottom line is that this policy is in place for the benefit of the students, teachers, and community at large. This policy is not meant to punish students by expelling them, but rather try to instill a sense of responsibility in each student and provide a last resort for extreme cases. So we are for zero tolerance policy because Bhutanese students are used to learning on traditional based education system on corporal punishment and following the orders. Our youth have not yet learned how to be responsible with their freedom. We think zero tolerance policy trains our youth to understand they are responsible as citizens of Bhutan. Thank you.
Remember, a good debater is someone who listens, reasons, researches, and reaches a conclusion. Sometimes, he or she even permits him or herself to be persuaded. Schools everywhere have the potential to expose children to multiple and diverse perspectives on a variety of issues, enriching their social and personal lives while planting the seeds for an enlivened, democratic society.
Democracy is all about freedom of expression and freedom of speech, and I think debate kind of provides this platform for young people and for people like us to open up and then use that freedom of expression in a form of debate actually to participate in a democracy. And I think as a youth and as a young person, and I can do that, and I can participate through debate.
The Bhutanese people, they are shy to come in front of public and talk about their opinion regarding anything. So I think this kind of activity will make them give them support and confidence enough to come out of in the crowd and just give them opinions about regarding any activities.
Then I think debate is a very important skill, and we should have it more and more in schools and colleges like ours. I think today's debate, I thought sitting there and listening to the students, I think we could have more, and we should have more. Not just the political science and sociology program as we have today. We should also have across other programs, other disciplines, and they could debate on their own subject areas, related to their own subject areas.